Hello, and welcome to Jason's Education Lounge podcast, brought to you by Think Academy. At Think Academy, we make learning across K-12 a fun, creative, and engaging experience. Every episode is a conversation with experts in education and education technology. We talk about learning beyond test scores and provide both educators and parents with solutions that work for their children. I'm your host, Jason. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Jason's Education Lounge, episode 2. And today we're joined by Tom Rogerson, who is the headmaster of Cottesmore School. It's a brilliant boarding school in West Sussex in England. Tom has been the head of Cottesmore for over 15 years, actually carrying on the legacy of his grandfather and his father, who were also headmasters at Cottesmore. But Tom has really transformed and brought a shockwave into the British education scene by introducing one of the first AI head teachers, which has really blown up all over the world. Tom has been very forward-thinking in the field of AI, being one of the only prep schools in the whole of the UK to start integrating AI into Cottesmore's day-to-day lives. So welcome, Tom, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Jason.
No, it's great to see you. And as always, I'm sure we'll have a great conversation today.
We've had some good conversations in the past, so I don't know why today should be any different.
Some lasting way too long than it should be, but it's been great. So for parents who don't know you, do you want to talk a little bit about yourself, about why you became the headmaster of Cottesmore and how that feels to you?
Remind me of the audience. Who is our audience? Is it the global audience?
So it would be parents looking to send their children to different schools. It would be parents looking to get a bit of information on education, on what they should be doing next, just any information. So parents mainly, and parents that are probably quite worried and they're looking for some solutions or ideas.
Well, Jason, I'm one of those worried parents. I'm having to go through this system of getting your child into a senior school at the moment, and it is indeed quite tricky. As Jason said, my name is Tom Rogerson. I am the headmaster of a school called Cottesmore. Some people say Cottesmore, some people say Cottesmore. And we are in West Sussex. Cottesmore is a boarding prep school for girls and boys. So the boarding element of it is from 8 to 13. We have a very little pre-prep, which is very exclusive. We've got a very small number of people who can be there. And so that's how it works. I am an educationalist through and through. I've been a teacher all of my life. I started teaching when I was 15. After GCSEs, I was straight in there. I suppose I was lucky because I could. My father was running Cottesmore at the time. I was able to come in and help out and be generally around the school to understand it. I think my own education was very similar. So I went to Cottesmore myself, and then I went to Eton. I ended up at Cambridge, and there were various things. So I'm a very creative person. So I went to Camberwell Art College, and there are various parts of my education that I'm very grateful for. I started teaching when I was 15. And so I've been thinking about teaching and thinking about education for a very long time. Somebody told me that I said when I was 17 that I wanted to run Cottesmore. And I can't remember saying it myself. Apparently, I said it to my headmaster at Eton, and I can't remember saying that myself, but apparently I was already thinking about it then. But actually, Jason, what I wanted to be was a rock star. So it sort of...
I know you have a great voice.
Something happened along the way, and the rock stardom didn't happen. I don't know if I'm grateful for that. Probably I should be seeing that, what happens to all of these singers and all these pop stars. I probably should be quite grateful. But went into teaching. 1 year I worked for Universal Music. Do you know the Universal Music Group?
Yes,
huge
I do.
Group, and that was super, super interesting. We were looking after Eminem. We were looking after somebody called Nelly Furtado. I'm like a bird, that person. Erykah Badu and Shaggy. Do you remember Shaggy? Shaggy.
I never heard of
that
him.
guy. So that was Universal Music International music career. What I was really trying to do is I was trying to get into the music industry so I could give everybody my music and tapes. It didn't work. Neither angle worked. But that was only for a year. Apart from that 1 year, I've been teaching since the age of 15. And so that's the story from my part. So I've got a great passion. I've got a great energy for teaching and helping young people, move onwards and upwards with their lives. That's where my passion stems from.
That's fantastic. And for those of you who don't know, Tom has an amazing voice. I'm firsthand witness to his singing voice, and it's absolutely fantastic. And Cottesmore as well. I'm so jealous of Cottesmore's grass tennis courts. So you get to play on a grass court. And I saw that Cottesmore has some courts. Maybe Tom will invite me over to have a hit sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. I have an event to invite you down to. It's called Sunday Tennis, and you can come and play tennis. My father used to be an amazing tennis player. In fact, he played at Junior Wimbledon and at Lord's. So he played tennis at Wimbledon and cricket at Lord's on the same weekend. So yeah, no, he's the guy. The tennis courts are literally from the beginning of when it was made, 1883. So they've been there for that long. And so we've decided, right, that's going to be part of the tradition of Cottesmore. So you're absolutely right. The grass tennis courts are a big part of our culture and the theme. Yeah. The outdoors theme. Perhaps we can talk about that in a bit.
Yeah, for sure. And talking about your grandfather and the legacy of Cottesmore, how do you differ from your father and your grandfather in your approach to Cottesmore?
Recently, I've just been thinking about this actually. And I think I differ from my father a lot. To look at, I'm very similar to my father, but I think I'm more similar in character to my grandfather. My grandfather was a great creator. He loved being creative and thinking of new things for the children to do and striding forth. Michael Rogerson would have been absolutely proud if he was still alive. We'd be partnering and he'd be like, yeah, do it. And this is great. And sort of almost entrepreneurial spirit with the adoption of AI. It's the wrong word, entrepreneurial, but sort of creative and looking to the future feel. He was very much like that. He was very keen on looking to the future. He went to a school called Upland House in Epsom. He was hugely creative and he was driven to create for his whole life. In fact, he retired after, I think, 29 years, but he retired into business. So he had a farm next door and he built a golf course and he did lots of creative, interesting things. He built a T in a tree on the golf course, which people would climb up to and hit out from the tree. And he was always thinking about new things. And I think in that way, I'm more like my grandfather. But to look at, I'm more like my dad. I think my father would be very proud. If he was still alive, he'd be very proud of what's going on with Cottesmore, the success we've had, the examination results, the expansion of the school. But I think my grandfather would be very proud of the creativity that's going on in the school.
Oh, that's great. And as you know, I went to a prep school as well called Papawick, and a good friend of yours, Tom Bunbury, who's probably will be jealous that I'm having a podcast with you rather than him.
He would be a top guy to interview. I thoroughly recommend it.
Yeah, maybe I'll reach out. As a former pupil of a prep school, I've always wondered what a day in a life look like as a head. So what do you have to deal with? What are the funny things? What are the highlights? What are the lowlights, et cetera, et cetera?
What are the funny things you have to deal with is that the children, the boys and the girls, are endlessly hilarious. Obviously, you can't outwardly show that you find them hilarious, even if there's something that is slightly sort of off that they've said or not quite the right thing that they've said. I think when you stop finding the children amusing or you stop connecting with them in that way, I think that's probably when you think, maybe I should move onwards and upwards. Maybe I should think of something else to do. I think that the girls and the boys are endlessly a source of amazement and inspiration and, as I say, hilarity. So what was a day in my life? So get up. In honesty, I'll probably be on LinkedIn before I go for breakfast. Well, the communication, I think this is a big piece. Communication is a big thing. For some reason, just before breakfast, just getting up, doing the thing, lots and lots of ideas come in and I'll lose them by the time I hit breakfast because it'll be Johnny's lost his sock and, feels a bit sort of scared about the Latin test or whatever it is. Lots of other people's thoughts are coming in. Very importantly, as a boarding school head, you've got to be tuned in with everybody. You can't solve everybody's worries, but you've also got to be connected to how everybody's feeling. Before that happens, as I say, sort of sparks of thoughts come out and I whack something up on LinkedIn just to keep up the thought leadership vibe rather than the everyday grind of the day. So get down for breakfast. Make sure you're seeing the children again, catching the vibe of the day, catching the vibe of the staff room. I tell you what, if you come down and play tennis, you should just come every day as a cooked breakfast. It's outrageous in Cottesmore. The food is too good. It's far too good. We need to make it less good. It's very, very good. So we had breakfast this morning. I had eggs. I think there was sort of bacon. I had fruit, porridge. I didn't have any carbs. I didn't have any bread, which was very good. Yeah. But this morning I had eggs, fruit and porridge. Apparently porridge is bad for you, but that's another podcast. A short meeting with the deputy head. Sometimes we wander about. So the kids are doing their exams, common entrance exams right now. So we might talk about that. How the setup for the day's gone, if everybody's feeling cool. And then I speak to the whole school. It's called chapel lineup. So we go to chapel every day. And so we have chapel lineup. You've been in the hall because you've talked at one of the conferences in the hall. In that room, we all gather together and we go, well done, Jimmy, for getting your colours for cricket. Well done, Jemima, for winning the horse jumping thing. It's an assembly, essentially. It's called Chapel lineup. And so I talk to the whole school. I feel the vibe from the school. Sometimes you catch the vibe. They're all super excited about something, or they're ready to talk, or they're ready to do something. But collectively, sometimes also they're quite low key and they can be quite tired on the run up to the end of term. And so actually, it's a really good time to feel the collective vibration of the school. So you can react to it. If they're really tired, maybe they need a rest. Maybe they need to just chill for a bit.
Do you have a school anthem?
We do the Carmen Cottesmoreanum.
Right.
Omnes animis, Carmen instauremus.
Nice. Do you sing those at the assembly that you just talked about?
Not every day. That would be too much. That would be too much. No, that's too much jingoistic sort of, Cottesmoreism. No, we do sing it though. We sing it at concerts and we sing it at various occasions. So yeah, no, it's the Carmen Cottesmoreum, the Cottesmore song. It's in Latin, as you probably sort of realize.
Yes.
But yeah, no, we don't sing that every day. But we should probably actually sing it more often. I think you've inspired me to think about how we can get that in there a bit more.
I remember telling you that we used to really belt those at half term and end of term in chapel back at Teddy's. Like you really, really scream it out. And it's always about it. We were never really on tune or it was never accurate, but we just thought whoever yells the loudest was the coolest.
Was it a vibe?
It was a great vibe. Fantastic.
It was a vibe. So there you go.
Yeah.
That's all you need. So what happens then? Chapel. So we get into chapel, sing a hymn, say a prayer, a reading, and then the day starts. So lessons and then break at Cottesmore. So my grandfather believed you need movement learning, literally physical movement. And so we have all of the lessons are in different places. So you have your science room and then you have to go somewhere else to art and then you have to go somewhere else to maths. Like most good traditional prep schools, that's what happens. But also what we do at 11 o'clock, it's not just a break. So you go and have a snack, but you go and do something different. So some people might be having extra maths or extra English or whatever, but the majority of people will be going to play golf, having a tennis lesson, having a slight mind shift. So when you come back into the next couple of lessons, you are absolutely firing on all cylinders. You are ready to think again. You're ready to study. And that's very much a philosophy at Cottesmore, is that you're moving, studying throughout the day. And it's been proven that children need that aspect of movement and breaks. Our lessons are 35 minutes, 40 minutes long. Apart from a very small percentage of people, you can't work for 3 hours, stop. So it's about this movement breaks. You probably can.
No, I cannot. It would kill me.
So that's the feel of the day, is like break, work, or movement, work. And then it's lunch. So that's pretty standard. Have lunch, a short free break. So it's got 20 minutes, half an hour of climbing a tree or reading a book or going to play French cricket or whatever, doing their own thing. And then it's lessons, academic lessons, maths and English. And then it's games, so sport. And this is really important. I don't know, the people listening to this, if they understand the culture of games. Games doesn't mean like Monopoly in a traditional boarding school. Games means everybody goes out and they play a team sport. And that's a hugely important part of Cottesmore existence and other schools. Essentially, you go out and you play team games. And I think this is an underestimated and understated strength of schools like Cottesmore. And I think this is something that perhaps we can talk about philosophically a little bit more. And then in the winter, you come back, you do lessons, and then it's supper time. And then after supper, you have structured activities. So some people might go and play tennis. Some people might go and do a bit of textiles or whatever. It's something that you go and do. It's slightly less formal. And then 7:30 is bedtime. So we all get registered, tick off, go upstairs and do the thing. 8:30, it's on bed, silent reading, the half hour from 8:30 till 9. Then it's hit the hay, get your head down, have a good bit of sleep, and then wake up the next morning and do the same thing again. Weekends are slightly different, but Sunday is slightly different, but that's the general gist.
Well, that sounds pretty fun. I kind of understand the ideal of study and then move and then study and then move because, from our experience, as you know, actually we're just over 3,000 pupils now at Think Academy. And some of our classes, even for the younger years, are about 40 minutes long. And it's proven quite tough for teachers to try to keep the concentration. They're trying to change.
Is that in China or is that with the 3,000? Is that 3,000 globally? Is that right?
No, 3,000 in the UK.
No, I was about to say, yeah. I was thinking, hang on, that seems a little bit of an underestimation for China with what you've told me about the model in China. Maybe one of your missions can be to make the UK's concentration levels longer, the concentration span, expand the concentration span of all UK. This can be one of your vision statements.
We have too many vision statements to try to follow.
Elongate the attention span of UK people.
My goodness. That would be a breakthrough or a miracle. We have about 40,000 pupils abroad in all the overseas branches. And we're talking in the millions if we count China domestically. So there's a lot of experience in that way. But we found that with younger children, the idea is to gamify the content. For example, if you're trying to teach a knowledge point, you basically make it into a game and then they learn the knowledge point through the game, through software, through teaching, etc.
People talk about gamifying as if it's something modern and new, but that's what marking is. Let's do a French vocab test and you mark it and you got 8 out of 10. That's a game. Because you wanted to get 10. But the immediacy of modern digital gamifying is very, very powerful, has to be said. But gamifying, in my mind, has been happening since the beginning of time. And it's the attention span that you're talking about that's so important. You know, getting immediate results from a game, a maths game, is very gratifying.
Yeah, Cottesmore was Tatler's Prep School of the Year. And you guys have amazing results. Year on year, it only gets better. What's your education philosophy? What's the reason why Cottesmore gets great results?
What I was saying about work movement, exactly that. And the answer to your question is balance. I'm not going to talk about academics for a second, and this will give you the answer that you're looking for. So people are on the stage, in the theatre, you know, the juniors putting on a production of the BFG or something. Somebody else might be giving a musical concert. We have a chess team. We have an esports team. Controversial.
Yes.
That's very non-Cottesmore.
What games are they playing?
Rocket League and Minecraft 5 versus 5 Capture the Flag. It's the world's first prep schools esports tournament. So there we go. That's another thing. And then you have somebody playing golf. And then you have somebody learning about AI. And then you have somebody building a bot, a teacher bot. And then you have playing foot golf, doing paddleboarding on our lake, which is literally just there. And so this breadth excites and inspires. That's what it is. And of course, the reality is the thing you do most is probably sleep at Cottesmore. But then the thing after that you do next most is learn. So there's a lot of teaching and learning that goes on. And it's the same in those classrooms. Diversity of opportunity, the demonstrative nature of the lessons. It's very practical. It's very hands-on. Why are we learning a Pythagoras theorem? How can you translate that to what? Why is that relevant? Actually, I'll tell you why. Because in architecture or this piece of mathematical theory can apply directly to this piece of financial, you know, if you want to be a billionaire like Jason Zho, then you have to learn about these theories, algebraic theories. And so it's all about demonstrating, being practical, but also allowing children to express themselves. That's another part of it. Mathematics can be deeply creative. In education, there's this sort of feel that creativity, go to the art room, and now come down, you must not be creative in the maths room. A ridiculous attitude to have. You can be creative in the English department. You can be creative in the maths department. Sometimes you have to sit down and learn functions in maths. Sometimes you have to just do that. And that can be a painful process. You have to get through that pain in order to be creative in mathematics. It's this diversity of opportunity in each subject, but also across the curriculum that is so important to Cottesmore. I believe the reason why we have fantastic results and the reason why we're striding forth and getting various awards and the Times Educational Supplement, we were the Boarding School of the Year, and we've been nominated for Boarding School of the Year again in 2024 this year, and we're going up to the award ceremony. I believe is because of this breadth. We're not afraid of a breadth. I think sometimes, Think Academy is very focused. And I think there is success in that. And that's a well-trodden path to success, is being very, very focused on one thing. And your thing is maths. And I think that's another pathway to success. I appreciate that pathway. In fact, of course, Cottesmore goes down that pathway. We have amazing riders. We have amazing show jumpers at the moment. They don't get to that stage by playing tennis. You know, they do a lot of that. And so I understand about a focus and being successful through focus, but also there's no point in being good at maths if you don't relate to people. If you can't relate to the why in life, if you don't understand why you're doing something, if you don't understand how to communicate that to other people, then there's no point in you understanding the concepts of maths. And that's what I think Cottesmore and other schools like Cottesmore do so well. I think we understand we're teaching children for the why as well as the what. And I think that's a really important point. If I was to put that point first, or make that the highlight of this part of the conversation, Cottesmore and schools like Cottesmore are very, very good at the why, and also the teaching people to interact with other humans and to be able to listen, be able to create meaningful output that other people can understand. Even if you're a brilliant physicist, I think a school like Cottesmore, a school like Eton, a school like Teddy's, they will teach you how to communicate that to various people. So you might have to communicate that to a 6-year-old, have the empathy to understand that a 6-year-old would think and understand and converse in a very different way to an 82-year-old in China, for example, or to somebody else from another culture. So I think it's not only about being good at maths, education, about breadth at Cottesmore. And I think that's where the success of Cottesmore comes from. Of course, Think Academy, you are part of a bigger whole of an education. So that's how you can fit into that, because if people are just sitting there for 10 hours on Think Academy, just doing maths the whole time, they're using that as the maths part, and then they might go off and do the other parts and the creative parts and the various things. So the quick answer is the breadth, but also focusing down at times and making sure that everybody's up to scratch.
I think what's really interesting is I didn't have my full prep education at Papplewick. I went to Papplewick in year 5, end of year 5, and I had my early education in China in one of the schools in my city called Chengdu. It really struck me very hard, the difference. At the time, I didn't notice the culture difference. But later on, much later on, I started realizing the things that I was missing, the character building element that was missing in the Chinese education. And, I'm not bad-mouthing the Chinese education. Each country's education is shaped around the way that the employment sector is looking for. And in China, people are looking for this type of people. So when I came here, I noticed there's a huge emphasis on individuality, on you as a person and on creativity, instead of being a class of 56 people. And sometimes if you're unlucky, you get paired with a boy as your sort of like a seat neighbor. I always got lucky, and there was always a really nice girl next to me. And, I'm a gentleman. I'm always super nice. But as a 7-year-old, I was super excited. And then I went to a boys' school. So as you can imagine, exciting anymore. It's not really too much of an emphasis on individuality in China. And I think one of the things, at least what I'm hearing that you're saying, is the variety of activities that people can do in Cottesmore specifically, and schools like Cottesmore, is character building, is making children to be a very well-rounded person rather than just academically focused. A lot of times parents are super focused on their grades, their exam results, etc., and not too much on the character building. Because I think I matured much later in my development. And if I didn't go to Papplewick, if I didn't go to Teddy's, and if I didn't go to LSE, I don't think I would be the person that I am today, doing what I'm doing, the maturity, everything like that. I have to agree with you.
I don't know if you've read a philosophy book called Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance.
Right.
I would thoroughly recommend. I read it when I was about 15. And they could talk a lot about quality. They slightly obsessively talk about quality. And what I got from it was that if you can be creative and artistic, think about maths and be very scientific at the same time, then that is a position of, huge ignition. And if you can be that person who is both, then the world is your oyster. Absolutely, you will be a huge success. But one without the other, you'll have to work very, very hard and you'll struggle. If you can train your mind in all of these disciplines, your trajectory is going to be very much onwards and upwards very quickly. So it's that balance, essentially. The Cottesmore philosophy is a balance of everything. Physical, intellectual life, spiritual life. Yeah, it's a balance.
And speaking of the balance, you were the first headmaster to appoint an AI chatbot as a principal teacher.
I think I don't know of any other.
You're the only one. And when I came for the conference, the AI in Sen conference, you showed off the things that you're doing with your software engineer, making the administration side of things much more streamlined and much more effective, making lives easier for teachers, and in turn, they can spend more time with pupils. What went through your head when you thought, okay, let's put it as a head teacher, and decided to really focus on this field?
Okay, there's so much to say on this, Jason. I don't quite know where to start. AI exists. AI, it doesn't care about anything because it's not human, but it exists. It has also existed for many, many decades. Shopping brands, online shopping brands have been using AI to leverage faster transport and to try and get you to buy more for literally decades. It exists. And so it's a slightly sort of get over it situation. You can ignore it if you want, But I think if you're going to be angry with it or shout about it, or if you're going to embrace it and think it's wonderful, you have to do this from a position of knowledge and intelligence. And that's essentially Cottesmore's philosophy, is to either, I'm very happy for people to renounce AI or say it's a terrible thing. It is quite scary in some aspects, or embrace it and think it's the most wonderful thing. But do that from a place of knowledge, do that from a place of intellect, understanding. That is the overarching thing. From that, you can say, well, why do we create the original title was AI Principal Head Teacher. It's been changed to a strategic leadership bot. It's about anthropomorphization. It's about making tech. It's about uncanny valley and people being afraid of things that aren't human being made to look human or to pass them off as human. And it's called Uncanny Valley, and you can look it up. There's a big Wikipedia page on Uncanny Valley, and people can do their own research on Uncanny Valley. So we changed it from a head teacher giving it a human title to a strategic AI bot, which is exactly what it is. It's what it does on the tin, and it's all good. We appointed this AI principal head teacher because we wanted to put out there that AI is here. Like it or lump it, AI is here. That's the biggest reason. And, I'm skeptical of AI. You should be skeptical of AI. You should be worried about it. Everybody should be. But also, we should be very, very excited because there's both aspects. As long as you're constantly thinking, the potential of that is very worrying. And on the other side of your mind, you're thinking, this has enormous potential. And of course, appointing an AI principal head teacher, you're on this side. You're going, well, we can see huge potential. That's where you are with that. Equally as much, at the same time, you have to be thinking the dangers of that. What are they? You've got to be very creative in ways that you can project or predict how that could be bad. And in that way, it can become a success because you can think of the worrying things that could happen, and then you could include that in the code, or you can include that in the development. So that was what it was. It was just announcing that this is possible. That's the answer to your question. We're announcing this is possible. Look at this. This could be the most incredible help. And in fact, it's more of a co-pilot than anything else. Late at night, the deputy head doesn't want to be called. You don't want to receive a call from me at 11:30. Jason, what do you think of this new AI thing? Oh, no, what? Now, I really want you to help me plan the scheme of work for AI for 13-year-olds. I can do that now at 11:30 at night. I don't think you want to do that, but an AI can do that. It doesn't want to because it can't think in that way, but it can help. And so that's where this bot, this AI strategic leadership bot, that's where it can help. It can help you late at night when you're having lucid thoughts and you're thinking, wow, I want to capture these lucid thoughts. I want to do some creative things. I want to capture this. I want to create some documents so I can remember what I was thinking. But I want to have something tangible to show for it, not just a thought that just goes away and then I wake up the next morning and go, oh no, what was that thought? So what it does very well is, hey, I need a plan for this. You can tell it, AI, I need a plan for this. Can you give me 7 bullet points, 7 ways of thinking about this? You know 5 of them. You already know 5 of them. There'll be 2 points in there that you hadn't thought about. And you think, wow, I'm glad that I'm now thinking about that. And sometimes it's EDI or sometimes equality or inclusion or whatever. You hadn't thought, maybe that way of thinking would have been better. And then you can go back and do. So, it's a co-pilot, essentially. It's a sounding board co-pilot. And obviously, it's not human. So at all times, think of GDPR. At all times, think of safeguarding. At all times, think it's not human. It isn't human. Don't pretend it's human. Don't treat it like a human. All it is, this is the other thing about AI, all it is drawing together a whole load of other humans' thoughts and giving them to you in a mesh of dressed up with grammar or a picture. So actually, it isn't creating, the AI hasn't got thought of its own. It's not sentient, doesn't have sentient thought. It's drawing together lots and lots of other humans' thoughts. So that's really what you're doing. You're pooling the resources about strategic leadership. Also, the other thing is you can say, no thanks, delete. Count with people who are helping you out, with mentors, with consultants. You feel like you've spent 10 grand on a piece of consultancy, 20,000 pounds on a piece of consultancy. You go, I've got to use this. Spent 10,000, 20,000 pounds on this thing. I've got to use this. Oh, no, that doesn't work. Well, I've got to use it anyway because I feel bound to use it. But obviously with AI, you don't have to use it. You can just delete. It left as soon as it came. So that's the other thing. Nobody's getting emotional about not using it.
Yeah. Have you seen the new ChatGPT for Omni, the one that's just launched?
Khan and his son one.
Yeah.
Have you seen that video with Khan and his son?
I did, yeah. That's crazy. Yeah. And as you know, we are investing in AI as well. Annually, we have 4,000 researchers on bringing AI into education so seamlessly, making it easier. I don't think we're trying to replace teachers. We're just trying to make teachers' jobs easier, more efficient, so they have more time to worry about other things like well-being, safeguarding, etc. But do you think it will get to a point where there will actually be job loss in schools, in companies like mine, in schools like Cottesmore, where there will actually be a huge layoff when it's reached so close to the point of...
Okay, so I don't really want to think of it. And that's a bit head in the sand. It's a bit like people who go, I will not think about AI. I'm not like that about AI. As you know, I think about it a lot. But I don't want to think about job losses. Maybe I should, because it'll stop. The reason why I don't want to give it air, I don't want to give it oxygen, because I do not want that to happen. I want more jobs. That's what I want, Jason. I want more teaching jobs. I want to be more teachers because of AI. I think we can provide more care for students with the use of AI. I think we can increase our well-being. I think we can get rid of the unbelievably dull parts of the job. You want to think about the children and the girls and boys' well-being. If AI can do something well, then let it do that thing well. It doesn't matter if it does care for girls and boys well. That's not okay to have an AI looking after a child in terms of care. That's not okay. There are certain things that should be sacrosanct, but maybe the teaching of maths, maybe the difficult concept of maths or whatever it is, if an AI can do that well, then yes, draw it in, use it as a tool, use it as part of your teaching, but certainly don't sort of poo-poo it, don't not it. But I think there are certain types of activities that should be banned for AI. We should write, Jason, you and I should write a list of things that AI should not be doing. But I think there should be more teachers because of AI, is my answer.
Got it. And I know you're like your grandfather, but on the education and learning and moving idea, you're both very forward thinking. So my question to you is, what's the next big thing in education? Where do you envision us in 10 years, 15 years, besides AI? What's the next big thing?
The next big thing is getting back to nature, getting on the sports field, growing stuff, being more connected to the earth, getting away from concrete, learning how to grow your own vegetables, rolling around in the grass, I don't know, playing rugby. More of that. That's where I think. And I think AI will be able to release us into that, living, connecting more with each other, having more meetings with each other, interesting, exciting meetings physically in the same room as each other, having community, collective, in-person experiences. That's what the future of education should be. We need to connect ourselves with nature and the reality of the earth more rather than staying within our concrete structures and thinking that's a life, because that isn't a life. You need to get out. You need to connect with the world. You need to be with people. What we're doing now is extraordinary. You're miles away. I'm miles away from you. And yet we're still connecting. And that's fine. If we could have done this in person, we should have done it in person. And it's not possible because of my job, your job. It's not possible to do that. But it's connectivity, it's human interaction, it's connection to nature. When I say nature, I mean literally physically the earth. That's my feeling. Because I think all this technology can increase our well-being, can increase our ability to connect to each other.
Absolutely. I think that concludes our podcast today. Is there anything you would like to add?
Yeah, we have loads of AI projects going on at Cottesmore. We have a project called My Future School, which is a competition. People use AI to create their perfect school for the future. That's going on. I've changed the date. It'll be up on LinkedIn. I've changed the date for entries. We also have our Builder-Bot, Builder-Teacher, Builder-Bot project. It hugely sort of very meta cognitive activity, really thinking about what is teaching, what is learning. Probably the biggest project for me outside of Cottesmore and outside of the traditional sort of thought is the Teacher Wellbeing AI project. Not so much for parents. It is for parents because if the teachers are well, then they'll connect with their children much better. It is surrounding all the work we've been doing. We're trying to prove that you can take away some of the drudgery, some of the paperwork pandemic, as I call it, the bureaucracy, taking some of that away from teachers and leaders, allowing them to get away from their desk and connect with the children. There's some children outside there, Jason, and they would be very good if I could connect with them. Obviously, I just as much like talking to you, but getting the other side of the door and getting out there. Right now, I have to write various documents and policies. I've got things to do on that front. And if that could be done in 10 minutes and not 3 hours, then that gives me time to then get away from my desk and go and connect with other humans. And the teacher wellbeing, we're trying to prove that that's possible with a company called TAISK, T-A-I-S-K, a guy called Alex Fay, and he's leading the technical side and the development side of that project. And we're trying to collect data that shows that it is possible. And then hopefully everybody will be able to use that information and be able to spend more time with each other. But yeah, those are the 3 big projects. What else is happening? The usual open days at Cottesmore.
Yes.
Please do come down. Jason and I are going to be playing tennis next Sunday. So that's something to talk about. But yeah, I think we've had a great chat.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tom. That wraps up this episode of Jason's Education Lounge podcast. A shout out to our parent company, Think Academy, a company that provides world-class online and in-person education programs for K-12 students. We're proud to be different, result-driven, and focus on the specific learning needs of your child. Check out our website at www.thinkacademy.uk. And a big shout out to Fame for making this podcast possible. Thank you for listening, folks. Stick around for more insights in our next episode. Catch you later.